Robin, you stay up, and Joe, if you'll come up to the table, we'll push on. Thank you very much for that presentation. I was particularly interested. I've farmed for the last 20 years in hotspot TB areas, so every little bit of new evidence around TB is obviously is very interesting indeed. I also would like to ask to come up to the table for the discussion is Dr. Maria Gualbenzu. Maria is the Senior Veterinary Research Officer in AFBI, and she's head of the Disease Surveillance and Investigation Branch. And Dr. Sam Strain, who's the Chief Executive of Animal Health and Welfare in Northern Ireland, and he's also the Programme Manager for Jouret's disease for Animal Health and Welfare in Northern Ireland, and acts as consultant to the Animal Health Ireland Jouret's disease control programme, which you've heard something about this morning. Right, this, in terms of the discussion and questions, all of these sessions are being recorded, so it's very important that you take the microphone. You will have to have a microphone so it can be recorded. Please give your name and particularly the organisation if you've got one that you're linked to. So, first question, please. Wait. I know it's Campbell, but say your name anyway.
Campbell Tweed, in this case I think TB Strategy Group. I'd like to ask the panel how you think you can get the best science, knowledge transfer, and then work the behaviour change that we need through a lot of people in our industry, not just the farmers.
Who's going to start with that? Joe, do you want to start that? You particularly picked up the knowledge transfer point in your presentation about how do we get that behaviour change?
It's very complicated, not at all straightforward. You might think that where you have a strong economic driver for change that you will get change, but not at all. It requires a multiplicity of efforts. There's that reset model. You're pressing as many levers as possible in relation to rewards and incentives, education, social pressure, economics, technology. All of those are important triggers, and they need to be pulled almost simultaneously. That's the trick. Perception can equal reality. So one of the areas that we've been very keen to work on is with Teagasc social scientists in the area of behavioural economics, and the idea that farmers and vets and other service providers have what the social scientists call scripts running in their heads. So they have an understanding, a paradigm in relation to the way a disease might work or any particular health issue might work or not work on their farm, and it's incredibly difficult to supplant that script and replace it with a positive one that will reaffirm your program. So, I think the social sciences can tell us a huge amount. And for too long, I think as veterinary, certainly from a veterinary background, we've relied overly on science and evidence base and telling people what is right for them, and not trying to get inside the mindset of not just the farmer but the service providers and understanding things from their perspective. It's a huge challenge.
Anyone else on the panel want to comment?
Yeah, I'll just add to Joe's comments. I think there's a couple of things. The first is, it seems a ridiculous thing to say, but to recognise that TB is a disease, that it's not a test, but it's a disease that has a huge constraint on the agricultural industry here. So it is a disease in the same way as there are other diseases, and it fits within that range of things. But the other thing I'd like to add to that would be there's a lot of cross-cutting issues between the various diseases. So we tend to think in terms of silos. So there's a TB silo, there's a BVD silo, there's a Jouret's silo, IBR silo, and so on. But in reality, when it comes to controlling diseases, I think there's a lot of cross-cutting things that we can do. So a lot of diseases come in an animal, for example. So animal trade is an issue. Within a trading industry, which agriculture is, how do you deal with that? Do you have some sort of risk-based trading mechanism that protects the purchaser while supporting the seller who might have a particular disease? So I think there needs to be a move away from thinking of diseases in a particular silo, but thinking more broadly. What are the low-hanging fruits, if you like, that might benefit diseases TB plus other diseases as well.
Thank you. I think we'll go to the next question. Gentleman here, if we can get the microphone, please.
Barry Barr. I'm a dairy farmer in a high TB area. We've given the example you can't reduce BVD without taking away PIs. You can't reduce TB in a dairy herd or any other herd without taking away the animals that are affected. But no one has done anything about it. I'm not blaming the badgers, but if we're going to control it in the dairy herd, we have to control it in the wildlife. And like it's costing farmers in our area an extreme amount of not only money, but distress. And as we see it, we're not against the badgers, but like if you're going to control it in the dairy herd or the beef herd or the cattle herd, you have to control it in the livestock. You can't take away one without the other. You can't control BVD without taking away the PIs, and you can't control TB without dealing with the wildlife. And it's time something was done. 50 years of testing for TB, and we're no further forward now than we were 50 years ago, as far as the farmer is concerned. I know from what we're saying here, but genomics, we can test for it a lot more and isolate what's there, and we can also TB advantage, whatever. But we have to do something with the wildlife as well as the ordinary dairy herds.
Is there any comment you want to make? Or?
No, other than just to say that, I mean, the TB Strategic Partnership Group has made the recommendations which are out for consultation, I think, so decisions will be made around that, which is a package, a full package of measures addressing all of those issues, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I say, I also farm, and I've farmed in hotspot TB area, and I fully understand the emotion and frankly the frustration of the last 20 years. So I'm sure all of us would agree with that and trying to find solutions. Can I next question, please?
Chairman, farmer and chairman of Organic NI. As TB has been around for so long, and we're testing every so often on many farms, is there any research showing that there's something, a better test coming forward? Because what we're using at the present time isn't completely accurate. You know, it's not taking out all the animals. Is there any forward thinking of what's happening in the future for testing within research?
Robin, in terms of the massive advances that you described over the last 10 years, we're still using a test that's probably approaching 100 years old. What do you see coming forward for better testing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a common comment which we hear. I mean, the skin test has been around for a long time. It has high specificity, so it's relatively not prone to false positives. It's the false negatives that are the concern. Its sensitivity is 50 to 60%, so it's leaving infection behind. We know that. We've been able to estimate that. But there's the strategic use of the gamma interferon test as a support. I mean, there are always claims for the next new test, and I mean, I think genomics obviously has a role there. But some of the, I mean, there are always claims that new tests are being developed, but they haven't been fully validated in terms of, you know, the sort of rigor that would support accreditation for tests like that. So until that's done, I think that's an important part of the process. That there will always be new tests and new approaches, either trying to detect the pathogen, trying to detect an immune response to the pathogen, and combinations of those. Due to the biology of TB, it's an intracellular pathogen, and the same is true in the human field. The sort of DNA direct detection approaches have been relatively unproductive. There's been some more interest in the TB was in the news last Friday on World TB Day, where scientists in the UK claimed a major new development in the detection of TB, but it's detection of TB directly from human sputum, which is a completely different thing. But it's an encouraging development all the same, and it's the use of that detection and sequencing technology. But there are new tests; they need to be validated. It's a process.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, we know the test has got a reduced sensitivity, so it's failure to detect infection. I suppose there's another way of asking the question: why is that the case? What are the causes of that reduced sensitivity? And there are a number of possibilities out there. But one of them might be concurrent infection with other diseases. So there's some evidence around liver fluke, for example, having an influence that's work previously done in AFB, but also perhaps Johne's disease and perhaps other things as well. So there may be other ways of looking at that other than saying, can we get a new test? Waiting for the new test. One of the other questions would be, why is the test so insensitive now? And perhaps they may be more amenable to intervention.
Right, thank you. I'm going to take a final question. It would be nice if we just change the subject, if there's another... Because I think we've had the answers. That can't see any more questions, so I'll take that privilege. I was very interested, Joe, in your health check, where you're taking data from abattoirs to inform basically the farmer and ultimately the food industry. Because we've been doing similar at the Food Standards Agency, been running a pilot in the pig industry, trying to pick up data from public officials that have got to be there anyway to try and add value from their role, as well as keeping the consumers safe by passing data that could improve animal health and welfare back. So we're running a pilot as well. And it just seemed blindingly obvious to me that we're going to have to do these regulatory rules, and as a classic public-private partnership, where we can actually improve animal health and welfare and add value to the regulatory side of things. I just wondered, Joe, if you were thinking of expanding that at some time in the future.
Yeah, it's a very interesting program because there are a lot of wins in it. So as you said, there's a win for the veterinary inspectorate who carry out the inspection at the post-mortem. They're demonstrating that they can add value to that process. There's a win for the factory because they reduce the level of discards. And there's a win for the farmer because they have better information on which to put in place control programs at farm level. So it's been a very easy program to promote for us, and it's been one that has generated a lot of positive feedback from farmers. We've worked very, very closely with the Department of Agriculture in the Republic because they're introducing what they call an anti-mortem post-mortem system. So that's a holistic system that would capture all sorts of pathologies, mostly regulated pathologies, at ante-mortem and post-mortem. So the scope for this project to expand into other areas, including potentially into areas of ante-mortem, is quite interesting. And I agree with you. I think there are strong financial drivers there within the beef processing industry, and there are drivers there from a governmental point of view. So I think the government can see that, for example, Animal Health Ireland has developed a communications tool that's working very effectively in this program, whereas they have a challenge in terms of how do they roll out a project as broad in scope as the one that they have in front of them, the AMPM project. How do you actually make that meaningful? And if you look at the European regulations, the hygiene package, it's all about actually making improvements back at farm level. So how do you feed that information in a meaningful way back down the value chain to the farm? And our contention is that if you have a well-educated farmer, you have a well-educated vet, and they're looking at real-time information relating to that farm, you will get the best health outcomes in that scenario.
Comes back to the point you started this session with, data and evidence. And so can I thank the panel, and I'd like the audience to please thank the two speakers in particular for this first session.